Welcome to the Wayne Bennett podcast, celebrating West Virginia's people, places, and the culture of Southern Appalachia. Now here's your host, Wayne Bennett.
Welcome to Wayne Bennett's podcast. This is Wayne Bennett. This is episode number 71, July 2022. And getting back with Bob Clay. He's come here from Albany, Georgia, and we want to talk a little bit. It's something we didn't mention in the early days. You had a daughter in 1970?
1971.
71.
Yeah, she's a wonderful little lady. She's quite the gal.
She's a doctor now, right?
That's correct. She went to Maxwell Hill, started Maxwell Hill, and then we moved. Then she ended up going to Stanford up here. Then she went to Stratton Junior High, and then we moved to Texas.
Now, after you have become the production manager at Beckley Newspapers, and you guys had moved into a new building, hadn't you?
I think if it was finished. I don't think it was. It was not. I was project director on the new building also, which changed my life. But George was looking for the perfect place, and I was kind of involved in that. And he wanted to keep the newspaper in town, and he needed a railroad spur to get the paper in. And he chose the site now on North Canoa Street because it was in town and it had the spur. And he chose the land. But that was before they sold it. And it was the new company, Clay Communications in Charleston, owned the Daily Mail. They built a new building and put the new press in.
Now, they brought Sid Grimm in as a general manager.
He came out of South Carolina to start with, in Columbia. He was an assistant personnel manager down there, and there was some union problems up in Charleston, West Virginia. And he ended up in Charleston, West Virginia as personnel manager, and a lot of it had to do with dealing with the union striking situation in Charleston, West Virginia. And then when they bought Beckley, they sent him down here. By the way, Sid just passed away a year or two ago. Great guy. I had a lot of friends in Beckley. Yeah,
that was about the time, in 79, I wrote my first article for wrestling in the Beckley newspapers. Keith Walters was at the Raleigh Register, but then I started writing a regular column in 1981, and it's still going on at 41 years. And I think they've had 7 or 8 sports editors since then, and all of them have been great as far as I'm concerned. Easy to work with, and the current editor there now, sports editor Gary Faulber, is just fantastic, and keeps me encouraged. But then during this time, you're taking additional studies, getting a master's degree. You've won a few awards, Outstanding Young Man, West Virginia. You're teaching some night classes at Concord. What were you teaching?
I was teaching business 101, 102, production management was thrown in there, mostly business classes. I enjoyed 101 and 102 more than probably any other classes I taught, because it was the fundamentals of the very basic fundamentals, and it just sticks with you through the years. That was a lot of fun. Had a lot. My wife was one of my students for a while, one semester.
Oh, wow. She got an A, right?
Yeah, she got a good grade.
Now, then all of a sudden, you 1984, you take off and go to Dallas.
Well, I wanted to expand my horizons, and there's an old saying in the newspaper business that you got to move to improve. And it didn't look like I had a future with Clay Communications, and so thought, well, might as well go as big as I can go and see what happens. Dallas Morning News was putting in a whole new series of presses, and we'd go back to the photo composition deal. They were switching over completely to offset and needed managers. And so it was a real opportunity. If I got a master's in the newspaper business, it was at the Dallas Morning News. Fantastic people,
Really?
all pros, all professional pros, and one of the really great things that there was a guy named Jim Smith that we had meetings every day from production in the newsroom, and he was the newsroom guy and I was a production guy, and he actually covered the Jack Ruby trial, and he didn't cover the Kennedy assassination story. He and other folks were all involved in covering it. He covered the landing of the plane in Fort Worth, and so he missed the story in Dallas. But I talked to people that had covered the story, because the Dallas Morning News was basically on Dealey Plaza, so you could walk down there and just see all it. But when Ruby got killed, Jim Smith covered that. It was just, just to be a part of history like that, to me, it was just fascinating, just truly fascinating.
Now, in '87, you come back to West Virginia for a weekend or so, brought some people. I remember you wrote an article in the paper telling about your visit to Greenbrier and fishing and those kind of things. Was just friends you brought back, or business acquaintances, or you?
They were just friends.
Yeah.
Just friends, and we're still friends today. That's for sure. Yeah.
So now, then you went to Charleston, South Carolina, and this is about the time USA Today.
I wanted to come back east, and I wanted to run my own shop. I'd gotten my education, all the education. Dallas is a great big place, and a lot of opportunities there. But we wanted to come back east and be closer to here, and. So I got the job and it was a wonderful job in Charleston, South Carolina, and great people down there, Joe Smoke and a lot of folks. So I ended up, Joe passed away, and other leadership come in, but they owned several other newspapers, and I got to work with them on their production. And some of what was really, really fun was looking for newspapers to buy. So I was on that committee to attain other newspapers. Well, I got to fly on the Lear Jets deal over to California with the big execs and all that kind of stuff. And I thought I was somebody, man. It was really. I'll try not to get into too many stories, because I love to tell stories. But we were flying out to California, and a pilot came on. He said, "On your left is Air Force One," and it was right there. And they had shooed us away. They told us to get away from them. Air Force One had, and here come a jet. That was kind of insisting that we we were getting too close to Air Force One. That was, anyway, it was great fun in Charleston. Had a lot of great opportunities, and the U.S., because of the West Virginia Tech Committee that I was on, I knew all kinds of folks, and they were looking for another printing site. The publisher at Salisbury, North Carolina, which we own, said, "Do you know Ken Kirkhart?" And I said, "Yeah, he's my production guy, the #1 production guy at USA Today." And she said, "Well, he called me and was talking about printing USA Today. Can you get that meeting together?" I said, "Yeah, I'll get that meeting together." And we got the contract for USA Today in Salisbury, North Carolina. And that was worth its weight in gold. So we'll put it that way.
Also, during your time down there, you were alumni of the year in printing management for WV Tech, and you were introduced to fly fishing somewhere in that. You were about 50 years old or something. Yes.
I had fished all my life. I'd fished in the Menace, Muzzle Creek, and all in the Greenbrier River. And but I thought fly fishermen were like pipe smokers. You fooled with it a lot more than you actually did.
Yeah, that's about
always fooling with something, And but I had an opportunity. I was also bought newsprint, millions of dollars of newsprint a year. Me personally didn't, but I was a representative for our company. And I started getting offers on these fabulous trips in those days, newsprint companies had camps in Canada to go salmon fishing. So I finally got invited to one in Labrador. And I said, whoa, this is great. And the only caveat was it was fly fishing only. And I picked them up and played with them. I didn't like them too much. And, oh, come on, go, we'll teach you how to do it. Well, it was the most frustrating 3 or 4 days I ever had. I was sore, so sore. My arms are so sore from trying to cast that thing. I finally ended up catching a fish or two on the last day. And I said, I'm going to learn how to do this. And I bought a little combo outfit from Cabela's, and I started reading everything I could read and doing everything I do. Practice casting every day because I wanted to go on these trips, but I sure didn't want to mess them up like I did before. And it became absolutely, I was a kid again. I was just a kid again. Everything, it's just a different way to fish and a wonderful, learning something all the time.
I didn't know anything about it. Closest I ever came to fly fishing, I watched the movie River Runs Through It with Brad Pitt.
Yeah. I got even there. I have a story. The guy who was actually doing the casting, a guy named Borger, Jason Borger, and it wasn't Brad Pitt. I hate for folks to know. The guy actually casting in the shadow cast was Jason Borger, and he gave me the test, my first test for my certification, and failed me.
Oh God!
So I got to know him. And and I've never forgotten him. But if he hadn't, I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready, and so.
Well, I read a little bit. I didn't realize that Isaac Walton had wrote had a book that The Complete Angler, and had a chapter out of fly fishing, but he didn't actually write that chapter. And then there was a guy named Alfred Ronalds. I don't know whether you've heard, but he wrote a book called The Fly Fisher's Entomology, and it was pretty in depth. Of course, Ernest Hemingway referenced. And the sun also rises, and he was an avid fisherman.
Hemingway did a story, Big Hearted River, and I believe that's the name. That's close. And it's about a veteran that came back from World War I, and he wanted to replenish his. But the thing that was so fascinating about it, it really gives you an understanding of fly fishing in the early days, 1900s, from Hemingway, and it was just a wonderful story. It's a short story in one of his short story books.
Now you make your own poles and everything now, don't you?
I started. You kind of progress as things goes along. Not everybody likes. Some people just love to make flies. They're fly tires, and they absolutely love it. I'm a caster. I really loved casting and worked as hard as I could and got my certification through the Federation of Fly Fishers International big deal. I mean, it really is. And if there's 3 in West Virginia.
Wow.
One in White Sulphur and one in Lewisburg and one in Parkersburg. So it's just it's pretty rare. But anyway, because you got to work at it and it's tough. But most people they don't want to do that. They just rather have fun, and that's great. Man, they want to fish. So got to the point where I got into the history quite a bit of fly fishing, and before World War II. The only material to make rods out of was natural things, tree limbs, whatever. Yeah. And it just so happened that a few people back in 1860s, 50s, and 60s figured out that bamboo was the material, light, tough, all that, and bamboo. So I got into kind of working with building my own rods. You can't beat graphite, period. For fishing and for casting. It's the greatest material, period, there is. But the sentimental value of bamboo is a whole other thing too.
Yeah.
So I started to make from blanks. They were already put and building rods. Yeah.
What's your favorite place to fish?
It depends on what kind of fish you're talking about. But for adventures, been to Alaska a couple, 3 times. Alaska's just absolutely wonderful. But, and there's a lot of buts associated with the weather. It's just, you don't know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
Could be wonderful. It could be. There was one trip, we only saw the sun one afternoon.
Wow.
It was raining and it never got above 50-some degrees in August. You just don't know. You don't know what to expect. And never took our waders off during the day. But bone fishing is the most fun for saltwater. I mean, just a little fish. It's about 2 pounds, and they take you for a ride, man. I mean, they really take you for a ride.
Now, let me put you to a test. What's a Kirby bent?
A Kirby?
Bent.
You got me.
Well, I just saw it in a book somewhere. I don't know what it is either. But what about the newspaper business today? I mean, you're retired now. I still get 2 newspapers, and I get the Beckley paper, I get the Charleston paper. I like to read. I like to hold it in my hand. I like to do crossword puzzles. But the newspaper business that I've observed has dropped off significantly. You have not even a tenth of the staff that you've had in the past. The young people are not reading the newspaper. They're getting the news off the internet. I mean, tell me what you think about the future.
Well, from the past is kind of interesting in the sense that you kind of know it's coming, but you don't believe it. What happened, the internet was a great big part of it, but it wasn't all of it. The newspaper model disappeared. And without getting into too much technicality, it was based on this notion of, okay, we're going to have 70% advertising or 60% advertising and 30% news. And that's the way the newspapers were built and all that. So the model itself kind of disappeared. As banks started merging, as retail started merging, every time there was a big merger, half of your banking business was gone, half of your retail was gone, and this just kept on. So we were victims of the system too. Mm-hmm. Well, every time you cut down on advertising, they cut down on pages, and they cut down on stuff that you wanted to read. And probably the one that really got you was classified. When Craigslist and all those came in and we started losing classified, it was doomsday coming. There just wasn't any answers to it. They couldn't find I'm talking about the whole industry, could not find a solution to losing all this. Every time they cut something, oh, we're going to have to cut this section because we're not selling any advertising in the book, the book section that we sell on Sunday. And then the internet, it just wasn't. It's not something you're going to pay money for.
Yeah.
And it's not something people wanted and want now to give away. You can't even give them away. I don't think, unless it's a highly specific area like the Wall Street Journal that you have an audience for, the newspapers are pretty much gone. I mean, I don't see any future for them at all.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe some little weeklies in small towns have a much better future than dailies. But find somebody.
I know you have a trust issue too about information in general. Not just newspapers, but it used to be when Walter Cronkite was on TV, whatever he said.
Yeah, I went on that side, but AP, you could pretty well, or UPI, and all the big wire services, they ran through the mill before they published.
Good.
Those stories. You could pretty well count that what they were talking about was accurate to the T. And I lived through some incidences, I might say, even in Beckley, where a reporter would get the axe because they put words in somebody's mouth or it was not exactly right. They pushed the story in one direction or another, and that's not the way it was. A good company wouldn't fool with those guys.
What's on your bucket list? What you got?
Well, my bucket list it's just about empty. As you can see, I've had some serious issues with my back, so I'll never be able to wade fish again. And I might be able to fish out of a small boat. My casting abilities are still there. I still give some lessons once in a while when somebody wants to fool with it. And I've had some wonderful experiences. I mean, all over North America, Mexico, Central America, the Bahamas. Fished all over the place and had some wonderful trips. So looking back on it, you say, well, I've done a lot anyway. Okay, I'm still making rods, and I hope to go on one trip a year with some relatives that can get me in and out of the boat and that kind of stuff.
Well, Bob, we'd like to get you back. Our time's about up, and I surely enjoyed the conversations we've had with you. And next time you come, you can tell us some fish stories.
Okay.
I know you got a few of them, and but glad to have you. Glad you came by, and you're an interesting fella. Lived an eclectic life, and good old Sophia boy.
Yeah, buddy.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
And anybody else out there that would like to be on our program, you can contact me at awbennett50@gmail.com, and we'll get you on here. And remember, if you're not dead yet, you're not done yet. Until next time, God bless you.